I wonder how far along we as a human race could be if we learned all of the past lessons of the people that came before us. How much better off would we be if we listened to our parents and they their parents, and we truly were continually aiming and striving to be the best that we possibly could? I think we would be in a drastically better place as a species, as a people, as a thing, whatever humans are. That seems inarguable to me. The reason I say this is because, well, there's a couple reasons. But the first thing is that the way that I have written for the last 25 years of my life is not a good way to write. And I was too stubborn to change that. Partly because I enjoyed, and I still do, the way that I used to write. And I may still write small things the way that I used to write, because there is some fun there. But I may reserve the way that I used to write for journal entries or essays or things like a brain dump kind of thing. But it is not a good way to write for stories. It really, really isn't. And what that way is, sorry if I'm burying the lead here, is what Brandon Sanderson calls discovery writing. Basically, what it means is you come to your computer, the writing pad, the typewriter, what have you, with an idea and little more. You go, oh, what if a knight, instead of having a gallant steed, instead of having a stallion, had a mighty boar that he rode into battle and faced off against the kingdom's greatest enemies? Okay, that's kind of a neat idea, but you need so much more before you have a story. For beginners, the way that I conceptualize needing a story, there's four key things that you absolutely have to have. You need to have a hero, like somebody. It doesn't even have to be heroic, but it needs to be the protagonist. You need a protagonist, somebody that you're following. You need something that he wants, or she. You need something that the protagonist wants. Otherwise, what are we doing? Like, even if it's he wants a sandwich or he wants to go from A to B, that's fine. But he's got to want something. He can't just be just kind of rolling around in grass for 300 pages. What? I guess he wants to roll around in grass. Like, he can't just exist and be being pushed around. He's just in a stream. He's in a stream and he's just in the stream, bobbling down the river, and things are happening to him. That's not a story. So we need somebody that we're paying attention to. We need to know what he wants. We need something in the way of what he wants, so we could put what he wants here, and then something's between that. Now he's got something to figure out through clever means. He gets past it. He fights it. He ignores whatever. He's got to get around that thing because it's between him and what he wants. And then finally, some kind of a resolution, something that wraps this all together. Then we go put a nice little bow on it. Now, there's a whole lot more that goes into that. We need to know about this character. We need to care about him, ideally, or have some reason to, if it's like an anti-hero story, be kind of rooting for, but also maybe a little bit against him because he's kind of not a great guy. So we need to know who this person is. We need to have stakes. That's kind of where the antagonist, whether it be the environment, it's an avalanche or a plane crash. It doesn't necessarily have to be. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad guy chasing him, some monster, some zombies. It doesn't need to be that, but some antagonist thing, situation, event, person, creature, whatever. We need to hook the reader. There's a way to do a story correctly, and that's why when you go and watch a movie and you go, wow, this worked, versus, oh, this didn't work. And you've seen movies that worked, and you've seen movies that didn't work. And this was shown to me or explained to me in no uncertain terms in a book called Story Engineering by Larry Brooks. And if you're interested in writing stories and you want to be a storyteller of any sort, I would say it's worth the listen. I'm not done with it, but I'm about, well, let's take a look. I think I'm about 3/4 of the way through. I'm listening to it on Libby, which is an app that you can use for local library systems, at least where I live. I'm 68% through. Okay, so yeah, just over 2/3. And I would recommend, if you do get it on Libby, just skip the first 50% or 45%, seriously, because he kind of repeats the same idea again and again and again. He keeps on saying how you've got to have structure, you've got to have rules, just like a baseball team has rules and everybody plays their part, and just like in a play, every person has their role to play and their characters, and the director is orchestra. He gives example after I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. I'm serious. It's basically the first half of the book is him repeating and reiterating this idea again and again and again, that having a framework for the way that you do things is helpful. Okay, guy, we got that in the first 300 to, I don't know, 6,000 words. You did not need to go on for another 40,000 words of this or whatever it was. It's absurd. I'm yeah. My repetition of this point is nowhere near the amount that he repeats it, which is no reason for me to continue. But around the 52% mark, seriously, is where he starts explaining what this system is. He keeps on saying, I'm going to tell you what the system is, and once you know it, it'll change the way that you write, and it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, okay. It's like those video game companies that will release a trailer of a trailer that's announcing the trailer, which is announcing the pre-release of the trailer for the trailer, which is coming out and which will put it into early access, and then you get the trailer if you like, oh my goodness, holy crap, stop. That's one way to do things. Or you can do things like the way that they released Apex, and here's a full video game. There you go. No marketing. None. No trailers. It's just, here's a full game. Okay, this is out now. Oh my gosh. Oh, okay. Anyhow, what he says makes a lot of sense. And it makes enough sense for me to have looked back on something that I had written in that discovery form, which is me just sitting down like, I've got an idea. What if a guy... And then I get to the end, and then I go, this isn't all that great. And we are in a crazy time right now where before I didn't have any way to find out if my story was any good or not. If it had those proper, is it hitting those notes where it needs to hit, without one of two options. And there might have been more options, but those are the only two options that I had available to me. Option one, asking other people to read my stuff. And that is a big ask. Like, I cannot emphasize how monumental of a request that is, because you're not just asking somebody to read your 50, 80, 130, 500,000 word whatever thing. You're asking them to play the role of professional editor and give you feedback, oh my goodness, feedback on whether or not this thing works. And that is something that most people are not capable of doing. Most of your friends and family will go, yeah, this is pretty good. It's fine. They might be thinking, it's not great. I don't know that I would ever buy this, but I don't know why. I'm not a professional editor, so I'll just tell my husband, boyfriend, aunt, uncle, child, niece, nephew, yeah, it's pretty good. I think you got something there. And maybe they do. And maybe that something is buried beneath a whole bunch of gobbledygook and nonsense, but you don't know how to tell them what the core is, and then what to do to get that core out to reveal the gem that's beneath a bunch of muck. That's something that a professional editor can do, which brings me to point 2. So, option 1, ask friends and family and hope to God that they have the wherewithal and expertise to give you that feedback, which they almost certainly do not. Because if they do, they probably are a professional editor, and this brings me to point 2, they can charge a lot of money. A lot of money. And rightly so, because that's a monumental task, as I already outlined. Even if it's a 70,000 word long thing, which isn't all that long. That's about the length of Harry Potter, the first one, the Hobbit, which is the first of the Lord of the Rings kind of, whatever, is I think 90,000 words long, something like that. So it's a little longer than Harry Potter. Still not super long, but still, if you figure it takes about, let's say half an hour to read 10,000 words, or we're looking, it's like a minimum for Harry Potter, 6-hour read, roughly. Maybe I guess half an hour for 10,000. That's that you're reading at a clip there. So yeah, it's at least probably 5 hours of reading time, just straight reading. Most people don't read like that these days. They don't just sit down and read for 3 hours, then go do something else and come back and knock out the rest of the book. That's not how people read these days. Maybe 10, 20, well, not 10, but 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, sure, because they didn't have cell phones to distract them and little things and pings and things and notifications. But to get a editor to read your thing and give you a developmental edit or a manuscript evaluation, which is not quite as inclusive, involved as a developmental edit, you're looking at a minimum, a bare minimum of hundreds of dollars. Hundreds. I paid an editor to read through something that I had written. I thought, hey, this is decent. This is pretty good. I got something here. And I had something in there. But after paying this developmental editor 50% off because she was running I just happened to catch her when she was running a promotion because it was a slow time. She didn't have a whole lot of work. She was kind of between jobs, so she was running this promotion to get some more work. It was, I think, $250-ish, $300. Maybe it was 500. It was some hundreds of dollars. I remember that. And this was not even a developmental edit. It was a manuscript evaluation, which basically gives it kind of a broad view, just sort of a forest. Like, hey, there's some patches over here that don't match up with this over here, and here's some problems. Overall, here's the whole point of a manuscript evaluation is to tell you, is it ready for publishing or not? And the answer to that question was no, this story is not ready for publishing. Well, hearkening back to what I said a little bit ago about how we live in a wild time, I can get a developmental edit now for free. It cost me the time to upload the document to Grok. Well, Grok can read the entire document in a moment, 2-3 seconds, and tell you this is where it's strong. These are your where you shine. These are all the problems, and here's what you can do to fix it. So, with that in mind, I, having gotten a bit of the way through, well, almost exactly 2/3 of the way through this Larry Brooks story engineering, asked Grok, do you know of story engineering by, hang on a second, Larry Brooks? And it said, yes, I do. Trying to fix my, there we go, green screen thing. And I said, okay, with that in mind, could you give me a breakdown? Here's exactly what I did here. So I said, are you familiar with Larry Brooks' book, Story Engineering? Yes, I'm familiar, and it breaks it all down, tells you exactly what it's got in there from 15 different web pages. Tell me what the 4-part structure he recommends for writing a story is. Part 1, setup. You introduce the character, the initial situation, establishing context and stakes before major conflict emerges. Part 2 is the response, what you're doing there, how the character responds to that. Part 3 is the attack. The protagonist becomes, sorry, picking my nose here. Oh, God. Got a nasty itch. Good grief. Protagonist becomes proactive, attacking the problem head on with newfound clarity or resolve from the midpoint. Part 4, resolution, delivers the story's climax and resolution. Okay. I said, okay. So I wanted to make sure we were on the same page. Cool. Very good. I uploaded my Bitcoin story. I said, here we go. I said, okay, with that structure in mind, how do I fix this book I wrote? I'm willing to rewrite the whole thing. The parts that need to stay are the Bitcoin Bitaxe finding a block, Card, the main character, Jess, Card's artist dad, Rainer, and the Bitcoin challenges. And so then it did that. And it, after some back and forth, you can see here, we went back and forth a little bit. Most of this is Grok just typing out at the speed of thought, basically. Gave me some feedback. And this is crazy. It is a wild time to be alive. And I'm not sure what to make of this. It's weird. It's really, really weird. Because I am the one that is going to be writing this. I am going to rewrite this. I want to. I want to write this story for the Bitcoin community because I don't know of a book that currently exists that was written by a Bitcoiner for Bitcoiners. That's a fiction story. I know, sorry, I should have made that clear. There are plenty of Bitcoiner books by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Yeah, there's a lot of them. Tons of those. And there are even some stories, I know of 2, I couldn't tell you the titles, but I know there are 2 that have Bitcoin as a central plot point device. But I don't know of a story, a fiction story, that revolves around Bitcoin with Bitcoin as a core part of like the core part of that story and written by a Bitcoiner for Bitcoiners. So it's not explaining, it's not, there's no sitting there and like, so an ASIC is an application specific integrated chip and it's like, there's no exposition sitting there explaining how Bitcoin works and what mining is. And no, actually, Grandma, you don't use a pickaxe and there's no dirt involved. There's none of that. The weird part here is wrapping my head around this thing that is a tool, this AI thing, but it's not just a tool, though, is it? Because I'm talking to the tool. And you might go, well, yeah, you're just anthropomorphizing it. It is still just a tool, and how you're interacting with it is through the medium of language, but that doesn't make it weird. All right, I beg to differ. It is weird to me. Maybe it shouldn't be, but it is. And it's weird to me because it's going to make my story better. I can read the outline that it gave me, and there's some stuff where I go, not that, let's tweak this. And there is a back and forth, so it's not like it just goes, here, do this. And it's not currently at a point where I go, okay, cool, now write that, and it just goes, here you go, here's the story. That's coming, almost certainly. Like that's not far down the road, I don't think. I don't know if it's a year, 2, 5, 10, but there is a point, I think, in the not so distant future where it can just go, here's your story. I don't want to do that. I might do it for certain sections where I ask it to rewrite things or whatever, assuming it can match my tone and my style. But there are some things, I've already talked to my wife about this, there are some things that I will not use AI for at all. Because I want to do it myself. I want to do it the old-fashioned, me and myself kind of way. I'm happy to use AI for this story because it seems to kind of fit with what I'm going for and what I'm doing. It's kind of technology. It's kind of ties right into it. But it's also weird to me in a way that this thing is kind of guiding me. And I don't know what to make of that. It's a two-part situation. It's not as though it's just popping into my life and saying, "Here, do this." No, I'm instigating this thing. I'm asking it for the guidance and it's then providing it. But that is still screwy to me. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what to make of all that. And that is this chat.